Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Weather Center Live. It is our Monday night Tropics talk, and we don't... Actually, you know what? We do have quite a bit to talk about, and it's not necessarily related to the Caribbean. The Caribbean we've kind of been looking at for a while now. We know what's going to come out of there, and we finally look like we have a better consensus on exactly what's going to take shape, and I'm not overly concerned about it. We'll definitely still talk about a couple of details, but, you know, for what it is, I'm not entirely, up in arms about what's going on down there. Especially now that the GFS is finally on board. The GFS has finally kind of toned itself down and looks a lot more accurate and representative of what we're anticipating. Which is funny, too, because now even the GFS is much weaker than what we were talking last week. I know a few folks were sold on a major hurricane down there, and it just, no. No. But we definitely we got to watch what's happening not only off to our west, but we also got to watch what's going to happen right off the East Coast. National Hurricane Center obviously doesn't have anything highlighted yet, but, they just might. They might. Because I could definitely see a subtropical cyclone forming up. I definitely could. And we're going to closely examine that a little bit more now that we're into our hour-long tropics talk as opposed to the video segment from earlier. The video segment, I kind of touched on it today, or I should say tonight. We're actually going to go in depth with what I was looking at. But let's go ahead and say hello to some folks. Let's let some folks trickle in. Let's see who we got so far. Zarko, welcome in. Zarko, I saw your comment earlier. I need to still comment, or I need to reply to everyone's comments. To answer your question, though, I don't typically use 18 Zulu to update everyone because it's a continuity run. We don't have any new model data. Well, we have new model data, but we don't have any new analysis or upper air data. So typically I'll glance at 18 Zulu data, but I won't really say much to it. Whether it be the Euro, the Icon, the GFS, whatever model you want to put on the table. I don't advertise it and promote it too much because we're not getting that coincidence with our analysis data and the balloon data that we get at 0 and 12. So I hope that answers your question. Let's see. Miss Leah, welcome in. New live. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already done so. Please, thank you very much for that. We're on the road to 6,000 subscribers. I know we still have a little ways to go, but I think we're well over the halfway mark now, so we're almost to 6K. That's pretty exciting. I'm definitely not thinking we're going to hit 10 before the new year, but stranger things have happened. Maybe we'll be blessed on the channel. We'll see. Let's see. Matthew F-150, welcome in, sir. Good to see you. Zen, welcome in, my dear. Hi there. Let's see, who else do we got? Sharon, hey all, we're finally getting some rain in the Florida Panhandle. I love to hear it. That's great news. Nomad Cat 4, welcome back. Good to see you again. Brian, welcome in. Let's see. Glaister, welcome in. Jamaica's in the house. Very good. I'm glad you're here. James, been raining in Biloxi, Mississippi all day. Oh, yeah, definitely. It's going to keep raining, too. So, all right. Let's start talking. So we know already that this is our main area. This is the main event that everyone's waiting for. This is, I truly believe, the grand finale. Well, I'll say the finale. This ain't a grand finale. Forgive me, but a grand finale would be something, big for November. And, this is going to be a little something. We're going to get a lot of rain out of this, but I don't think it's going to be anything big. I don't think we're going to have anything tremendous to talk about. And even the GFS now believes it's just going to be a major rainmaker for our folks down there. Bad for Haiti, bad for the Dominican Republic. But, it looks like we could maybe dodge the worst of it in Cuba and parts of Jamaica. I know Jamaica has been under the gun talking crazy weather. A major hurricane has been promoted for Jamaica. That's definitely not happening. We're going to see. We'll see what happens. I'm definitely thinking tropical depression. We might get Tropical Storm Vince, but, I'm still not sold on a full-fledged tropical storm. We'll see what happens. And then we're definitely going to watch what happens as this system propagates to the east and then whatever decides to come up out of the Caribbean and form up off our east coast. I stand very firm in what I said in my video earlier today. It's very interesting. If you look in the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere, particularly at vorticity, and even temperature advection. Temperature advection will show it just a little bit, but more so your vorticity products, you'll see that there is actually... You have your contour gradient pattern right through here, and you have our little trough axes that's moving across the south, helping to spur up all that thunderstorm activity. But down in through here, we have very little small clusters of leftover vorticity in the upper levels, and as the trough comes through and does what it does, it's going to scoop it up, put it right over the Gulf Stream, and then we're going to get a little something spinning up, which is crazy, and it's totally believable because it's going to be right over top the Gulf Stream waters. Will it go tropical? I don't know. Will it go subtropical? It definitely has the potential to do that. Definitely does. We're going to look at that here in a second, and then we're also going to digest a little bit of what's going on down there in the Caribbean for our final hoorah, and then we can finally say bon voyage to the hurricane season, because to tell you the truth, guys, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready to kind of peace out from the hurricane season and start looking at what winter has in store for us, really bear into or lean in on our holiday season, and start looking at what next year has in store. You know what I mean? I'm a little done with hurricane season. And that's very bizarre coming from me, but that's just because we already got what we got. We're done. I mean, there's not going to be anything else really major happening. If there were a major hurricane on the horizon, then absolutely, I'd be buckled in, seatbelt fastened, ready to rock and roll. But all right, here we go. So we're going to look off the southeast coastline, the Gulf Coast, and the situation over the Bahamas. Yeah, some people constantly talking doomsday. The goat here is chill and smooth. Yeah, I don't understand why. Don't get me wrong. Even with the way the situation pans out right now, we're still going to get a lot of rain for sure. We're still going to get a tremendous amount of rainfall, particularly on the island of Hispaniola, Haiti, the west side of the island. Dominican Republic could definitely see some good rainfall from it, but it's mainly going to be a rain event. That's the big thing. Just a rain event. And it doesn't really take a tropical system or not to give you guys really bad weather down there. It just takes one or two very strong thunderstorms and you get flooding. And, that's kind of why I like to boil down all the hyperbole and really look at the grand scheme of things. We had the GFS, for example, calling for a Category 4, and we had a 4 hurricane going through there. Now that would be very dangerous, a very bad setup. But, all things considered, you boil down all the nitty-gritty, and we have a really, really intense flood threat going on. So that's kind of a big deal, but not as bad as it could be. Let's talk southeast first, though, because we have a lot bubbling up down there. So, oh, geez, I don't know what that was. On the left-hand side, we have our 10-meter wind gust, max expected wind gusts. And on the right-hand side, we actually have our maximum wave height and direction. So it's not necessarily storm surge. This is what the model thinks we could have offshore in terms of, wave heights, swell heights, etc., and so on and so forth. And I want to bring this up because even though we may or may not get anything highlighted from National Hurricane Center, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I almost want to argue that this scenario is actually worse than what's going to happen down in the Caribbean, at least in terms of overall environmental dynamics. Obviously, Haiti, Cuba, Jamaica, Dominican Republic are really under the gun for a few inches, if not several inches of rain. But, if you look at this stuff, this is shaping up to be a very potent El Nino style system, and we might get a little subtropical low ahead of our El Nino system, which makes things a whole of a lot more interesting. So you look on the left-hand side, and we already have a really sporty situation out there in the Gulf of Mexico, and what looks to be almost a little eye right there. You see that? Very weird. Very little small, what looks to be almost like a little center of circulation right there where it calms down. Very bizarre. And then right around there, you see this wind field, the orange to red shadings. If you look over at the chart here on the right-hand side, those are all tropical storm force gusts. The weakest winds we have around that core are going to be somewhere in the 34 to 38 knot range, which translates well into tropical storm mile-per-hour gusts. And then as you get closer to the coastline there, you have winds forecasted to be anywhere between 50 to 58 knots, which is, solid tropical storm-like energy. And then it gets even better. You can see along the coastline, I believe National Weather Service is already putting out coastal advisories for folks in New Orleans, Mississippi, Alabama, as this deepens down and gets a little bit stronger. And then as you take this through time just a little bit further, look at what happens off the east coast of Florida. Not only with our waves, the waves are getting up there. You can see that there's a small little cluster of 45 feet way offshore. Not going to be a factor for coastal flooding or anything like that. But Janice, welcome in, sweetie. Good to see you. I was getting a little concerned. I'm just kidding. So lots of swells coming right at the coastline, and then look at the wind field with this. Winds, once again, do not want to back down on that. They get fairly strong fairly quickly, and it's going to push a lot of water on the seashore, and unfortunately, it's going to do a number on our coastline, big time. So even if we don't get it highlighted by National Hurricane Center as anything, it's still going to be a very bona fide, strong, low-pressure system taking off to become a nor'easter down the road. And I do think we'll see subtropical storm-like impacts from it because it's going to situate itself right over the Gulf Stream, and I think that's why the models do want to spin up a very concentrated low pressure. Let me see. Where did I missed? Let me change this chart real quick. Let me close that out, and let's go to mean sea level pressure and add that on the right-hand side. Here we go. So yeah, if you look, we get our first low out there in the Gulf. Nothing crazy. You know, it kind of deepens down. But then look off our coastline. We go down to almost 1,000 millibars off the Jacksonville, Daytona Beach coastline. So, you know, a very aggressive system, that's for sure. Very aggressive. And it's going to come out of the south and west. It's coming out of the Caribbean. A lot of people think that it's that low in the Gulf that's just kind of going around Florida or bleeding over across the peninsula. And, you know, if you look in the mid to upper levels, it's definitely, that's not what's happening. Definitely not what's happening. But it's cool. It's very neat to see. So yeah, that's that whole scenario right there. This is what the National Weather Service NDFD model has in store for us. You can see pretty good rainfall along the coast, upwards of 2 inches. And then Florida is actually anticipating that we could possibly see upwards of 4 inches down in the southeast, with about the average being 2 to 3 inches along the east coast as that next system begins to develop. And then, unfortunately, I don't know what the heck's going on for you guys in your Tampa, St. Pete, Sarasota, Clearwater. For some reason, you are not seeing a whole lot. You might be able to get a ½ inch to an inch out of this stuff, but, you know, we'll have to see what happens. I don't see why you wouldn't get rain. The HRRR is thinking we're all going to see a lot of rain. So, you know, it remains to be seen. We'll see. Maybe you'll see a nice little wave of shower activity, but you're not going to get a whole lot of that inundation that we're expecting on the East Coast because that's where our main low is going to start to bubble up. And yes, Brian, I agree. The East Coast is still ravaged from Nicole. Nicole was a big flood slash beach erosion kind of factor or situation, unfortunately. And it looks like we're going to have another textbook scenario like that play out. Here's our HRRR, and this is also what I'm a little concerned about as both of these systems get going. If you look, we don't go all the way out in time, but these systems or these storms right here are definitely looking a little rotational. So if you guys remember what happened back in October, Friday the 13th, or that same weekend, you know, I don't think we're going to see something to that extent, but there's going to be some rotation out there. Definitely some rotation for sure. Oh, yeah, Nomad Cat 4, this is definitely El Nino. Definitely El Nino. But we have a very strange setup for going on over the southeast. On the west side of the state, we definitely have bona fide El Nino. This is our jet stream dipping way south, forming something up with a short wave at 500 millibars, kicking out over the Gulf. What's crazy is on the east side, we have a totally different scenario. It's not actually, I mean, it is attributed to El Nino, but it actually could take on more subtropical characteristics, kind of like what Ophelia did, because we're going to have a nice conglomeration of upper level and low level energy parked over the Gulf Stream, kind of riding up the Gulf Stream, and that's where your hottest waters are there. And we've had countless full-fledged tropical systems strengthen over the Gulf Stream. I've seen hurricanes in the past. When they encounter the Gulf Stream waters, they suddenly want to intensify quick, and I think that's what the models are also thinking could possibly happen with whatever energy comes up out of the Caribbean. Should the Cayman Islands prepare for the Caribbean storm? Not necessarily. I mean, I would continue to take precaution, but I wouldn't say you have to prepare and bunker down. You know, I don't think that's exactly what's going to pan out. One model in particular, the Icon, thinks it could wander a bit further to the west. I've been watching that. Very interesting. But the icon also doesn't call for any kind of development over the east coast of Florida. So that's also going to play a huge role in it, because once these systems begin to form, it almost looks like this guy right here is going to take a lot of the energy from our Caribbean setup and kind of thrive off of it. I'll show you that when we go over to the GFS. For once, I'm actually in agreement with what the GFS is showing. I'll tell you the truth. But this is definitely something we want to watch along the west coast of Florida. If you look, those storms are not really falling apart. There's a lot of what could possibly be rotation out there, and that has me a little concerned. Let me see if we can pull up a shear map. Let's see. Do we have shear? Is shear on here? Is it going to be on here? Nope, it's not. So let's look at updraft helicity. Let's add that in. Here we go. So this is going to be the potential for rotation in your atmosphere, in your updrafts. I need the right model run. Let's go back to 18 Zulu because we can go that far out in time. All right, here we go. So you look at all that possible rotation we have, or helicity, in our updrafts out there. And essentially all helicity is just a fancy terminology of saying how much vertical rotation are we going to get out of these updrafts. Like, what does the vertical wind component look like from the low levels of the environment all the way up to where if we get a vertically stacked or a tilted updraft, how much of that helicity is going to cause it to possibly spin, create potential hailfall, good lightning strikes, long sustained thunderstorms or long track thunderstorms because of that tilt, helping to prevent the updraft from raining itself out. And, you know, nothing as cataclysmic as what we saw back in October, but it is worth noting that this system does have some rotation. So we can't rule out the possibility of maybe seeing a water spout, just a stray water spout, or maybe a stray funnel cloud amidst all this happening along the west coast. And then again on the east coast, because we can't see that far out, but if we do get something else spinning, any of those bands coming around to slingshot the north coastline of Florida could possibly bring in some rotational thunderstorms with it. So very neat stuff. You know, no one's talking about it. I mean, we are starting to get a little bit more awareness to it, and I haven't really, to tell you the truth, guys, I haven't really been looking at YouTube videos or social media. I've noticed, for the sake of my own mental sanity, it's better to just kind of stay away and looking at what everyone else is talking about. So I've just been looking at everything on my own, maybe taking quick glances on the Instagrams and the Facebooks, but that's about it. This is all very interesting stuff, and I hope we do get a little bit more awareness to possibly see some coastal water spouts or things along those lines. And in fact, what we'll do is we'll go to the NAM nest here in a second as we go further in time. I think the NAM nest will go out, I think, 3, if not 4 days. I believe it's 72 hours, but we'll take a look in a second. And then here's our probabilities. This is 12Z today, and like I said in my video, we are maxed out, folks. We are fully capped. The Euro is 99.9%. We're going to see tropical depression formation down there in the Caribbean. And if you look off the coast of Louisiana, we had a little bit of a spike of about 20-25% off the Louisiana coast, and then it kind of disappears from there in terms of tropical development. And I believe if you go over to tropical storm probabilities, it's still there. Yeah, surprisingly, the tropical storm probabilities are a little bit higher off the coastline. And then you get some pretty decent agreement that we could get maybe a tropical storm as it passes through the channel between Cuba and Haiti, affecting the southern Bahama Islands headed towards Bermuda. Bermuda is going to get schwacked by this for sure. They're going to see pretty good rainfall and maybe some elevated winds from it as well. I see you guys commenting about the rain. Let's go ahead and look at that real quick. Let's go to the Euro, because the Euro is going to be the only model that can get us out that far. I don't want southwest. I don't live there anymore. Let's go southeast, and then let's go to rain, precip. Let's see. Which ones do we want? Just trying to see what other overlays we have here. We'll just go to the total precip. All right, here we go. So this is 12Z today. As you go through time, look at all that rainfall right along the coastline. And then as it comes through Florida, the Euro is a little bit more frugal with it, it looks like. It also ups the rain chances for West Coast Florida as well. I'm very glad to see that. It looks like up near the Ocala area, maybe they could possibly see a little bit less in the way of rainfall, but the West Coast is definitely going to see it anywhere between an inch, inch and a half to 2 inches. And then down across the central and eastern southern half of the state, we could go anywhere as far as 2 inches, all the way pushing. There's some purples up in here, so maybe up to... It's tough to say with those color coding. It's too far out. The resolution isn't the greatest, but it could be anywhere between 2 to 4 inches, 2 to 6 inches. I have not finished my forecast review, Nomad Cat 4, unfortunately. The only stuff I could really pull up were surface charts and sea surface temp anomaly charts, unfortunately. That's one huge obstacle I've run into when trying to do a forecast review for this type, or I should say in the civilian side of things, because in the Air Force, a lot of the data we used to have, our Mark 4B satellite or Gibson Ridge radar, what else? All of our internal model data. You could go back in time and pull all of that stuff and put it together into a nice briefing. Here, it's not as easy. It's not as easy. TRG Tornado, I agree. If you're talking about the Caribbean, yeah, low-end tropical storm at best. I don't see anything else coming from it from there. Can we get some rain-wrapped tornadoes as well? Maybe not rain. Well, yeah, we'll have to see as we get closer in time. We'll take a look at what the NAM Nest is thinking, and we'll go from there. In fact, let's just do that right now. Let's go over here, and let's go down to the southeast, and let's see what we got. Let's go to the 12-kilometer NAM, upper dynamics, thermodynamics, precip, and we'll do this, and we'll look at the radar. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to see a lot of rainfall from it. It's hard to tell if the NAM wants something to form up on our east coast or not. Let's go to the 32-kilometer NAM. It doesn't go out that far. What a bummer. I thought it was going to go out that far. Let's go down to the southeast. So there goes our bad boy in the Gulf of Mexico. It's not organized, but a lot of the models do think it's going to spin up into a full-fledged low. That's the interesting part. I believe the HRRR had the same thing on it earlier. Oh, the 0Z's coming in now, which is good. Yeah, see, the HRRR thinks it's going to take on a bit of a cyclonic spin. If you go back to 18Z, where we can see a little bit further in time, you see, plain as day, there you have it. We get a little bit of a low-level spin out of it as all that stuff starts to surge in from the south on Wednesday. Let's see, what else can we look at? The WRF, what does the WRF have? Yeah, the WRF has a low spinning up as well with some good onshore flow for the south. So Miss Leah down there in the Miami area, you're definitely going to have storms coming in as early as Wednesday. This is a little more conservative. Let's see, what else do we have? And that's about it. We're not going to really be able to see anything high res until a couple more days from now. So we'll have to watch and see what happens as we transition through tomorrow and especially Wednesday. But here we go. So this is what I thought was really neat. If you track this through time, notice that there's a lot of leftover vorticity down over the Greater Antilles and the Yucatan Peninsula. And as that trough begins to move through, it's going to get pulled north. And as it goes through time, here's our first area right there. Very consolidated, very good looking on vorticity. And then here you have that band of vorticity coming up out of the Antilles, out of the Caribbean, spinning up off our coastline right there into a very, very consolidated cluster of mid to upper level. We'll go ahead and use Mike's weather page terminology, spinach. And then there goes our system coming out of the Caribbean, going right in between the islands there. And even the 18Z GFS, I'm for once kind of ecstatic to see that the GFS is thinking what we're thinking. And you can see that the system off our east coast might get a little stronger than the system down there. It's still projecting a 998 millibar low, but what's very weird is if you look at the pressure gradient with it in comparison to this, that's nothing. This thing's minuscule. Looks like even the GFS now is on board with what the Euro was thinking. We're going to get a lot of heavy rain into Haiti, maybe Dominican Republic, and that's about it before it completely destroys itself and gets really elongated with that next trough. I believe 12Z said the same thing. Yeah. So 12Z had it holding on a little bit more so. Still, the main area we want to watch for is going to be Haiti. Haiti is going to be the area that we'll definitely want to watch closely in terms of what kind of tropical development we get down there. It's still very bizarre to see that our models are on board with tropical cyclone formation, though, because there's just a lot of wind shear down there. There's a lot of wind shear. So that blows my mind that we're still going to get, or, we might get tropical cyclone formation. Because even if you look at the relative humidity, there's so much dry air down there. So much dry air. And I remember earlier in the year, anything that tried to get going where there was a lot of wind shear and dry air, there was no hope for it. Nothing got going. So very interesting to see that we're still up in the chances, both in the models and on National Hurricane Center, that we're going to get formation down there. I'm sold on it. I mean, it makes sense. All the models are screaming development, but then again, we saw the same thing with the 97L, and that was a huge bust. Everybody busted. Everyone busted. I busted. Somebody else tried to tell me the other day on one of my videos that I was going to bust again, saying that I'd been hyping a hurricane this entire time, and it's like, no, I've been talking about the possibilities of it going this way or this way, not a hurricane. I was never sold on there being a hurricane in the Caribbean. That's very outlandish. And if you look at that at 12Z, there goes our next El Nino system right there. So as I'd mentioned in my video earlier today, as we go through the rest of November and into December for that matter, we're going to continue to see more and more El Nino-style systems helping to keep our rain chances up as we go week to week, which is a good thing. Because you see here, we get that first system working its way through. Well, let me go back further in time. There's our first system giving us rain. Then it kind of leaves, and then there's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Wednesday, and then into Thursday. There you have it. There's our next big system right there. And then Friday, another one going through right there. And then there's another one for the following week. So as we go week to week, about every 5 to 7 days, we're definitely going to see another El Nino type system, or at least a frontal system at that, come through that's going to keep our rain chances up, which is good stuff. That's good news. We'd like to hear that. Hey, I noticed that we can have 2 tropical storms or hurricanes. We might have 1 tropical storm. We might. I'm still not fully sold on a tropical storm, to tell you the truth. And then the system off the East Coast, I don't know if that's going to make it tropical. We could see it take on subtropical characteristics, being right underneath the subtropical jet, supported by some upper-level influence, and then over the Gulf Stream waters, it could pop off some, consolidated convection near its center. But I don't know if we're going to get 2 named storms out of this. I really don't. And, as you look at the ensembles, we're starting to see a little bit more agreement that we're going to have something form up off our East Coast than we are in the Gulf, not in the Gulf, in the Caribbean. You go through the 12Z Euro and look at all the model members shooting up the East Coast. I mean, we have more members, it looks like, here than we do down here, which is very crazy to see. That's definitely not going to be, as it gets further and further past the mid-Atlantic coastline into the northeast, that's definitely going to get caught by the polar front jet, and it's going to turn into a baroclinic system. Same thing with the GFS. If you look at the GFS, we have a lot of good ensemble member agreement up there, and then, actually, it looks like we lost a little bit of agreement at the 18Z. There's not as many members of the GFS down there hitting Jamaica and Haiti, which is also good news. Let's see. What else can we look at? What else do I have up right now? So, yeah, it's still very, very, I think it's still a bit of a toss-up. Just a little bit. Because, I've seen a few other sources mentioning that the National Hurricane Center continues to up our probabilities. But, guys, we've seen a 90-80 split before. We've seen 90-90 splits on storms, and then it plummets, and then nothing happens. So just because National Hurricane Center has it highlighted doesn't always mean immediately that we're going to see Tropical Storm Vince or Tropical whoever out there. Are the chances still going up based on what I see? Definitely. It's a good probability that we're going to have some sort of tropical energy trying to spur itself up down there. Do I think it's really going to consolidate into anything worth writing home about? I don't really know. My gut says no. Just looking at the dynamics we have down there, it's a very unhealthy environment. We'll go over to the European model, and you can see the same thing. If I switch to 12Z, and you get close to closing time down there, there's a surge of moisture, but then look at all this dry air that kind of comes in and invades the region big time. Lots of dry air, and then it goes without saying we have high amounts of wind shear. Look at this chart right here. I mean, there's a small pocket of possibility that it could develop in the southern Caribbean, but then as soon as it starts to push north, you're running right through all this really, really good wind shear. So I'm really on board with what the Euro has. I mean, it could consolidate into a very weak tropical storm, albeit a very disorganized tropical storm. It'll probably be very right side loaded, which is why Haiti is going to be the number one area that needs to be looking at flood prep right now as we talk about this in the video. Because even if we don't get formation, we're still going to get a lot of rain. You know, formation, no formation, it's going to be a rainmaker. It's going to bomb out and hit a bunch of rain out there. It's not really going to do much else. And yeah, that's the main takeaway, the main diddly doodah. So yeah, I mean, you know, that's really all I have, guys. You know, as we get closer to the end of, you know, hurricane season, these tropic talks are gonna just start dwindling because there's really not a whole lot. All this stress I've been through and probably won't even happen. Yeah, you know, Zarko, that's why I'm going to be very, very bold when I say this, and I could get some shade thrown at me. I've had some shade thrown at me, to tell you the truth, as a matter of fact. But that's why you got to pick and choose who you really want to pay attention to. And I say that with the utmost sincerity, because I've had my moments this hurricane season where I will definitely tell folks, look out, you know, prepare, dangerous, etc. But at the same time, if you go through my videos, I'm also not afraid to say, this is good news, or this ain't that bad, or, you know, hey, guys, we're seeing positive trends. You know, I'm not afraid to say that. I'm not afraid to sacrifice the views and tell people that we're looking at good weather. Like, honestly, all in all, there are some dangers that come with this Gulf of Mexico system that we're looking at, but in general, this is a good thing. I mean, we've been all dying for rain out here, and that's the number one thing it looks like this is going to spawn in. Now, we'll have to wait and see what happens off our east coast, because that could change some things. But at the end of the day, you know, a lot of that, I'd say about 75% of this scenario is good news for us down here, especially for the Gulf Coast and the west coast of Florida. So Hurricane Otis is crazy. Hurricane of the season, I agree. You know, we had some pretty big ones. We did. The East Pacific definitely stole our thunder this year. We had Hillary, we had Lydia, we had Hova, we had Otis. It goes without saying. Out here we had Lee. Lee exploded for sure. He definitely did some things. Just no one really cared that it did because it was way offshore. That's why a lot of people really turned the other way and didn't really bother to talk about it. But we had a clockwork example of what could happen here in our own Atlantic waters. Lee went from, I think it was a Cat 1. I'm pretty sure he was a Cat 1 down to a 5 in 12 hours. So we saw some pretty clockwork rapid intensification from Lee, and we saw a little bit of rapid intensification with Idalia before she hit landfall. So we had a couple heavy hitters this year. We had we had a left hook from Idalia and then a right hook that we managed to bob underneath from Lee because he didn't hit anybody. So yeah, you know, good stuff. Almost every weather YouTube channel is all hyped for views and money. Yeah, you know. And I think after watching what happened with Otis, shoot, am I late to the stream, possibly coming to Florida? No, Ethan, you're not that late. No, we're about half an hour in. The situation in the Caribbean, no, probably not going to come our way. We're going to have something maybe taking shape off both our coastlines here in Florida, but we'll see what happens there. But anyways, yeah, I agree. You know, and like I said, I could get shot for this, truthfully, but, you know, it's really starting to bum me out. Personally, not professionally, because I understand that there are situations that need to be communicated thoroughly and they need to be explained to people who may not have the same infrastructure, the same societal level, the same, you know, economics, the same whatever you want to put on the table as we do here in Central Florida. We have a very biased perspective because we're well built up. We have a lot of connections, a lot of economic, you know, stability. Some of these other island nations and countries in Central America, for example, they're not as well off. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. I'm just being realistic. So yes, certain weather scenarios do need to be communicated thoroughly and explained as they should be. But at the same time, I'm tired of, you know, slapping the same thing on everything that rolls through there. You know, I'm tired of, this is going to be bad, this is going to be bad, this is going to be bad, this is really bad, this is really bad. You know, it's, you got to really boil it down and appropriately communicate what's really happening. Like in Florida, I could have taken, I'm going to make a spoof video, by the way, guys. I'm going to make a giant disclaimer at the beginning of it. A huge disclaimer warning. What you are about to see is entirely fictional and entirely for parody purposes. Viewer discretion is advised. You know, like, I'm not going to make it a serious video, but if I wanted to, that SIG torn and the helicity that I showed you guys earlier, I could definitely hype that up. Oh, tornadoes again. It's going to be just as bad as early October, guys. Tornadoes coming. You know, I could definitely jump on that, and I'm not going to because, like, let's be real here. The models are going to be models. They're going to do what they need to do, and, you know, it's not going to be that bad. It's not going to be that bad, in my professional and personal opinion. TRG tornado, I have no idea where that came from, but I don't think I'm going to try that. I love food. A few of you folks who have communicated with me on Instagram know I'm a huge foodie, but I'm not too sure I'm going to do M&Ms and milk in a cup. At that rate, I might as well just have Cocoa Pebbles or something like that if I want to embrace my, you know, inner child. Sounds like a channel I know putting a giant hurricane on Puerto Rico in the thumbnail when it's not even close to the truth. Oh, Lord, yeah, no, that's ridiculous. There's a tropical storm headed towards the Philippines. I did see that. Yeah, there's still some stuff happening out there. Heavenly Father, I come to you in the name of Jesus. Your word says, whoever shall call in the name of the Lord shall be saved. I'm calling on you. I pray and ask Jesus to come into my heart. Oh, wow, Angela, we're getting real deep. Hey, Naz, do you know if you have anything going on December 15th? As far as I'm aware, Ethan, I don't think so. Very heavily contemplating if I'm going to do the car show on the 2nd and then do it to the other car show on the 9th, but I don't know about the 15th. But yeah, Zarko, I agree. There's a lot of folks out there, you know, and I think that's really what I hope anyways, can delineate between the true folks who are dedicated to the people and the folks who are only dedicated to the bad stuff. And then claim that they don't care about the bad stuff or they don't want the bad stuff, but then they only put emphasis on the bad stuff. I'm not afraid to tell like it is. If we're going to get pooped on for all intents and purposes, I'm going to tell you that. If nothing's going to happen, I'm going to tell you nothing's happening. You know, I'm going to do the best of my ability to tell you nothing's happening or something's happening. Just like in Puerto Rico, like, do I still think we could get some effects depending on what actually happens down there? Because we still don't have anything down there. We have all this confidence that something's going to form up, and we had all this confidence that a major hurricane was coming out of there, and nothing has even happened yet. Like, nothing's down there. We don't have an invest. We don't have anything going on. So, you know, it's still all speculation at the end of the day. But from the way it looks right now, definitely all excitement, all hype, all sensationalism for Puerto Rico, the Antilles. Even parts of Cuba and the Cayman Islands, to an extent, should be dodging a big bullet. And if anybody really needs to pay close attention to it, is going to be the Bahamas, Haiti, and then maybe even Bermuda, as all that stuff starts to consolidate and kind of, you know, squeeze itself together into a very thick band of winds and rain. St. Lucia, you know, nothing tropical or anything like that. You guys could have some thunderstorm activity out there. In fact, let's go over to the satellite. We haven't really looked at satellite. I haven't done satellite in my videos in a little bit. So let's go to the satellite. Let's go to the little satellite. Here we go. So there's our Gulf stuff really starting to get going. Look at that. Really bombing up, or blowing up, I should say. Looking very juicy up in that neck of the woods. Looks very similar to what we saw earlier this year. Not earlier this year, but earlier towards October with that first Gulf of Mexico system we had. And then we have all the onshore flow occurring along the coastline of Central America, which in reality was also a bust. If you think about it, there were a lot of folks, myself included, who were really talking about all this onshore flow that was going to go crazy. But I noticed as soon as the models started to back off on this thing down here, a lot of the models backed off on the heavy rainfall down here. Now, we are still seeing some really good stuff in Nicaragua and Honduras, but it mainly looks like daytime thunderstorm stuff, you know, the traditional things that happen down there. Very garden variety daytime thunderstorms blowing up on the coast, kind of pushing in, very similar to a sea breeze. Belize looks pretty good. Belize didn't have a whole lot going on down there, just some garden variety thunderstorms, it looks like. Same thing with El Salvador. Guatemala is pretty quiet. Costa Rica has a little bit of stuff going on down there. But all in all, guys, I mean, there's really not too bad of weather in comparison to the 10, 12, 14 inches that I was seeing some folks mentioning a while ago. I figured we were going to get between 4 to 6 inches down there easily, but, not anything in the double digits. And now it's definitely panning out. We don't really have as much rain coverage down there, which is good news. I mean, granted, we're still in the preliminaries, it looks like. We could see something, but, you never know. It looks like a very weak spin right here. A very weak spin. I can kind of see something spinning right there. Very tiny. Kind of looks like it. In the satellite, once that high-level cloud cover goes away, yeah, there's a little bit of a cyclonic spin down there. What day is it? It's the 13th. So we're still not going to see anything just yet. And if we were, the National Hurricane Center better start bumping up their 48-hour probabilities. Do you think maybe you could try and make it to my prism concept? Just an idea? That's not a bad idea at all. Just send me the details on Instagram so I don't lose it, because it's going to disappear once this chat continues to move up. What's going on, Mike? Welcome in. It's just the right amount of sweet in the milk helps tone it down. Gosh. Yes, once the GFS gets chaotic, they fall in love with it. Yeah, But out there right now, to answer your question, Trina, St. Lucia's looking really good. You guys have nothing out there. It's very quiet. Extremely quiet, actually. You have all that prevailing easterly flow, and it looks very dry. Just some low cloud, very weak low cloud down there. Some Carmen vortices. Carmen's not in the chat right now, but you can see some Carmen vortices as these winds go near the islands. You can kind of see the little, you probably can't see them from where you guys are sitting, unfortunately, but there's some what are called Carmen vortices on the leeward side of where the wind flow is coming, or on the opposing side of where the wind flow is. Very cool. Weak eddies. How about, Jamaica are now under severe weather alert for tropical depression number 22. Where the heck did that come from? Tropical depression 22? There's nothing even out there yet. What the? News here, barely speaking about this. Zarka, I recommend Brian Shields of the Mr. Weatherman channel. He like weather. Senator Nazar keeps it real and simple. We are in St. Lucia diving daily till Saturday. Very good. That's good that you guys are enjoying yourselves out there. They don't care unless there's an X. Anything coming up for Antigua and Barbuda? Nope, not right now anyways. Definitely quiet out there. Very quiet. You can see it on the satellite imagery right now. Very calm. Very calm, cool, and collected. So yeah, I mean, there's some stuff, but there's not a lot of stuff. There's some stuff enough for people to like and try to suck it in as much as they can before hurricane season's over with. But, not a whole lot. Not enough out there anyways. Had a blast hanging out on stream for the past 2 months. Definitely going to miss Tropics Talks. Well, Doff Boy, we're not going anywhere. In fact, I really wish that the person who gave me the idea would spawn back into the chat, because I haven't seen them in a while, but we're going to move into new segments, live streams called Post-Tropics Topics. Post-Tropics Topics, exactly. That's going to be our new live stream. And the new live streams are going to, consist of whatever bad weather's going on out there, whatever good weather we have going on out there, so we can discuss current events. But we're also going to be doing different kinds of segments involving, the commentaries. We can do educational spits. What? Bits. There's going to be different segments built in there, but they're going to be called Post-Tropics Topics. We have Tropics Talk right now, and until we can come up with something else for maybe the spring or the winter time, not the winter time, the spring or the summertime, until tropical season 2024, we're going to be doing Post-Tropics Topics, which I'm excited for. Just like the spoof, I can't wait. I know people are probably going to get mad, but I can't wait to do a parody video. I definitely want to do a parody video summarizing a lot of the hurricane season, and there's going to be so many funny little things in there that I'm going to put in. Like, you guys want to see me act, I'm going to definitely act, and I want to recommend immediately that you go in there with a grain of salt with your sunglasses or your blindfold on, and remember that it's not a serious forecast, but it's definitely going to be funny, and I'm excited. False information disseminated here. The officials only said Jamaica should brace for severe weather event. They never mentioned anything about tropical depression yet. I agree with that. Yeah, there's no tropical depression out there. There's nothing even on the satellite just yet that we can highlight, or an invest for that matter. And the most I would say is, I agree with you, Shawnee. It's just a severe weather event. It could be a flood event. That's the big thing. I'm not even thinking we're going to see a whole lot in the way of winds with it. All of our models think we could get maybe 30, 40 knots, and that's pushing it. The GFS has even backed off with 18Z. The GFS really doesn't have a whole lot of really bad wind flow on it. It did a little bit. It did for a little while, and I saw some folks mention that we could get 60, 70 mile an hour winds up there, and I don't see that. I definitely don't see 60, 70 mile an hour winds anywhere, for that matter. Nowhere. I mean, I don't think even the GFS has anything like that anymore. Let's go to the lower dynamics, 18Z. Yeah, look, even the GFS has maybe tropical depression kind of winds down there. And this is the GFS, guys. This is World War III, fallout, nuclear war, global thermonuclear war GFS right here. And even the GFS, as it moves through Haiti and the Dominican Republic, has maybe 30, 35 knot winds with it. You go over to the latest run of the European model, and you can see the same thing. In fact, the Euro here has it even weaker now. Does it actually? Wait a minute. Yeah, does the Euro have it weaker? It does have it weaker. Look at that. So the Euro at 18Z doesn't have it really forming up anymore. Look at that. I bet you 10-1 when we see 0Z again, though. It's going to probably, it'll probably be back. But even if you go to 12 Zulu here and look at the European model right here, you go through time, there's the 17th, there's the 18th, and once again, I mean, look at that. You know, it's just going to be a bad rainmaker. That's all it is. I mean, you'll go back in time, and it looks like we have stronger winds with that system forming off our east coast. Look at that. Stronger winds off the east coast of the United States than we do with that little thing down there in the Caribbean. And that's why I wish that people would just tell it like it is. You don't need to add all types of verbiage to your advertisement or to your report. Like, I could go in here and mention that we're going to have 10 to 12 inches of rain possibly in Haiti with, you know, some elevated winds as the strongest storms move through. I don't need to say, we're going to have dangerous winds and the flood could take lives and, you know, blah, blah. No, I'm not going to say that. Because let's be real here, if you've lived in those islands for more than a year, you probably know what's going to happen. It ain't your first rodeo. And that's another thing, too, is I don't want to insult the people out there. If I have any viewers in the Lesser Antilles or anybody out there from Jamaica still, the Cayman Islands, Cuba, Dominican Republic, it's not a fact of the matter that I don't want to tell you guys, you know, when situations could possibly be extreme or dangerous or catastrophic. I also just don't want to insult you guys either and think that you have no idea what's happening and you've never lived through a bad storm before, you know? Like, that's why I want to keep it as cut and dried as possible, because I know for certain my aunt in Puerto Rico is a wonderful example, and I'm going to stand by that. Zarco, Puerto Rico, my aunt Elba out there in Puerto Rico is a wonderful example. When everyone was talking about those rains and the training rainfall that was happening over the Leeward Islands, and the what was it? I think we had that frontal tail draped over that area with all the onshore flow providing the thunderstorms out there. Everybody was out there saying bad floods, catastrophic floods, dangerous. Oh God, it's the worst. And I spoke to my aunt. She was like, "Yeah, it just gave us bad traffic." I literally wrote her LOL because of all the things I've been reading on social media about how everyone's like panicking and, you know, things are going crazy down there. And then my aunt literally just goes, "Yeah, we have some bad traffic. That's the only thing we've seen." And I told her, you know, Titi, that's exactly what happens in Florida when it rains out here. The traffic just gets bad. So, you know, bro, with your charisma, you don't need to resort to fake hype and BS. You're the GOAT as you are. Well, thank you, Zarko. That means a lot that people are starting to really... Let me rephrase that. that means a lot that people are starting to take to the idea. That makes me feel really good. Lord willing, we can just keep going up and up. And, as dark as it may seem to say this, I'm ready. I'm ready for when the bad stuff hits the fan. I definitely am. It's fun to joke around when there's really nothing happening. It's fun to... We used to say the same thing on our operations floor. When we had a really good SDO on shift with us and the weather was quiet, we all knew, there's really nothing going on. We can play cards. We can listen to music. We can play games. I remember there was one time way back in the day where we all we'd pull out our phones, and when Among Us was a big thing, we'd all just sit there in our forecasting zones, and we'd play Among Us on our phones. That's how quiet. Punky the Mixed Dog, have a great night. I do see you having to dip out. I appreciate it. Ethan's Life, I saw that, buddy. I'll check it once where is my phone? Oh, it's right here in my pocket. I'll check that here in a moment. But yeah, back in the day, we used to sit back, and when the weather was, even when we had, winds, that's the thing too, guys, is maybe that's the difference between me and the civilian sector is, in the Air Force, we were okay with, 35, 40 knot winds. When we had downsloping events and non-convective wind events, even when we called the flight line and other operators who were getting hit by the bad weather, they'd be like, "Yep, we're closing up. We're gonna call it a day. We're gonna go home." So they were excited about the bad weather, and even when we had freezing rain and heavy snow events, we would just be sitting back "Oh yeah, sorry. Let me go ahead and cancel that now. We're good." Maybe that's where the difference is, and that's why it seems like I don't take certain things as intense as some people do. But that's just how I was groomed and how I was cultivated and how I was trained. It's just when it's bad, you got to buckle down. And kind of like where I was going with that story, some nights we'd just be kicking it, playing cards, listening to music. We'd go on long gym breaks and stuff like that. But then when it was time and we had severe weather, we're talking 2-3 inch hail, 60 knot winds on the front range of Colorado, Wyoming, bad thunderstorms in the Montana missile complexes. That's when we were eyes on the prize, name of the game, the game face on. We were focused. And, I'm ready for that. I'm definitely ready for that. And I think next year is going to be it. I think next year is going to be a big one. If this channel doesn't continue to grow over the winter time because people sort of tune weather out, next year is going to be the big one. And I don't mean that because I'm going to hype up and, be all crazy. I'm just saying because, that's when you're going to see, the game face comes on and we really need to buckle down and start blasting out threats far out into the future. I used to get a lot of flack on this YouTube channel in the very beginning when I was 1,000 subscribers deep because I'd be forecasting 2 weeks out. I'd be talking threats 2 some odd weeks out. And that's what it's going to boil down to. Next year, if we go even into just a neutral pattern, not even La Nina, even if we just go into a neutral pattern to where we can see some storms in the Gulf of Mexico, some storms in the Caribbean, that's when we really want to prepare folks and start talking about possible things a week or two before they form. Even if nothing happens, the fact that we could have some big things forming right on top of people, like Arlene earlier this year, some things in the Caribbean, kind of similar to this one, only way worse than what's going to come with this one. That's when we definitely want to buckle down and start discussing what could maybe be on the horizon a week or two before it gets there, because that's going to be the best way to prepare folks. You don't wait until it's there. And that's something I noticed big time this hurricane season with looking closely at social media and other weather platforms, is we very, very much so wait until it's there, and then we start to talk about the possibilities. Why not talk about the possibilities while it's still a possibility, and then explore the reality when it's actually there? To me, it's common sense, but I don't know. You guys be the judge. You guys are the viewers after all. If it weren't for you guys, I'd just be I'd sit here talking to myself. I'd be in a psych ward because I'd just be yelling at a microphone all night. I agree, Nomad Cat 4. I definitely agree. A lot of hurricanes for the Caribbean in 2024. I agree. I definitely agree with you, Aston. That's definitely something we can really level with on one another there. I do think that 2024 is going to open the eyes of the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. And that's another reason why I'm hesitant on advertising how bad these storms are, because there could be a lot worse, and I think we will see a lot worse in the future. And Lord willing, everyone's still healthy, everyone's still great, we're doing good on the channel, we're still all talking, congregating, and so on, because that's when it's going to be time to band together and get as accurate and corrective information out there as possible for people who will genuinely be in harm's way. Because, these storms, they can't, that's also kind of like that's kind of how I delineate it. In this kind of a situation where we're going to have bad flooding, in my opinion, and again, this is just my opinion, you guys can disagree, anybody out there can disagree, you're totally allowed to, I'm not going to be mad, I'm not going to take it personally. When it comes to flooding conditions and flood waters that we can see coming, and we know the rains are coming, that's where I tend to think, just like the good old classic saying, turn around, don't drown, that's where you could put yourself into a dangerous situation. You could put yourself in a life-threatening situation. It doesn't always pan out that way. It isn't overall a bad, disastrous situation. It could be if you are in the wrong place at the wrong time. Now, you flip the script and you look at Hurricane Otis. That's a dangerous situation. No matter how you cut it, if you are in the path of a storm like that, that is a life-threatening situation. That is a dangerous situation, and you need to be long gone before a storm like that hits. That's where I also mentally delineate between how I want to broadcast certain things. If I see an all-around dangerous situation, let's go hypothetically, if I were to take this chat, all you guys out there in the chat, and we were to just teleport or instant transmission to this thing in the Caribbean, would we all be hit? Yeah, we probably get rained on. We might have to watch out for some things, but it's not like we're all going to be in harm's way. If I were to instant transmission or teleport us in the path of Hurricane Idalia, or God forbid Hurricane Ian or Hurricane Otis, etc., that's a situation where every single one of us, 84 viewers in the chat plus Weather Center Nazario, is going to be a bad situation regardless of where we are. I need a lot of time to repair. These kids keep me busy, and finding time to make sure we are already safe is, and the sooner the better, rather prepare than begin. Exactly, Brooke, exactly. And that's why I like to advertise things way out in advance. Even if it means that I'm going to bust on the forecast, at least folks like you, Brooke, are aware that there is a potential, and you want to make sure that you have your preparedness items on reserve, in the event that you need to tap into them. And that's the whole thing in a nutshell. That's why I'm not afraid to advertise way out in the future, because at least it puts it on people's radar. The people who care will take the information and they'll run with it. The people who don't care, at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do for them anyways. They're going to be the ones who procrastinate and wait till the last minute. It's just like with school, when I care about exams and homework, I do it preemptively because I don't want to stress about it, and I care about the work that I put out. When I do these videos, I look into things beforehand and I take down my notes and I prepare because I care. If I didn't care, I would just get on the mic and be like, oh, look at the model, and that's it. That's kind of the same concept. Hurricane Otis caused 350 deaths. Oh, good God. Wow. 350 deaths. See, that's, oh my gosh. Wow. Hold on a second. We got to go look at that real quick. Hurricane Otis death toll. Okay, I'm only seeing... Oh, wait, no, this is back in October. There's, like, no new news on it. Yeah, there's, like, no new news on it. Where are you getting the 350? Because I'm seeing the 40s. And there's still a lot of people missing, unfortunately. But I see what you're saying. Where did it go? Gerard, I do agree. That depends on how much flooding, for sure. But again, 9 times out of 10... there's different layers to it. There's different tiers to it. If we had an all-around terrible storm like this, there's no escaping. There's no if, maybe, possibility. There's just end-all, be-all. This is a very dangerous situation. When it comes to, I'm not even going to go fully into that spiel because I get where you're coming from. I do agree with it, but that again, that also boils down to the nutshell of how you communicate it. If it's a very, very dangerous situation, there's a way about explaining it to properly get the message across. They could be a strong cold front and maybe a nor'easter by the time Thanksgiving arrives in the north. Yes, I agree, Maddie. Yep, I've been looking at that too. What is stopping it from developing wind shear? There is a lot of wind shear out there. There is definitely a lot of wind shear out there. We can even go to the 18Z Euro. This doesn't even go that far out, and you can see, look at how much wind shear is down there. There's a crazy amount. Crazy amount. And as soon as it comes to try, I'm getting an aneurysm here. As soon as it tries to come out of the southern Caribbean, there I said it, it's going to run right into all that wind shear. So, we're still in a holding pattern. We'll see what happens. We still have a few more days to get ahead of it. It's only the 13th. We have about 4 more days. We'll say 3 more days until we might see an invest area down there. So we'll see what happens. But all right, folks, Maddie, as we go forward in time, we're going to start looking at the possibilities of having a cold Thanksgiving for a lot of folks on the East Coast and even down here in Florida. But we'll get there in time. I don't want to rush November. November is already flying by, guys. It's already November 13th. We have about 2 weeks until Thanksgiving, if that. No. Do we have 2 weeks? Let's go to the calendar. You guys aren't going to be able to see the calendar, but no, what the? Thanksgiving is next week. What the heck? That's how fast time is going. I didn't even realize that. Thanksgiving is next week. Black Friday is next week. I'm like genuinely mind blown right now. Good Lord. Dang, I hope you all have plans out there. I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday because, it's sneaking up on us. Shucks. Yeah, it's already the 13th, and next Thursday is already Thanksgiving. Dear Lord. So yeah, we have 9 days until Thanksgiving. Who knows, maybe you'll end up working for the NHC. You deserve that position, the passion and effort you put into weather. Keep it up, brother. Matthew, I can't tell you how much that means to me. Definitely can't tell you how much that means to me. I would love that internship opportunity. Love an internship opportunity to create some kind of a working relationship with our folks at National Hurricane Center, especially in between hurricane seasons. That would truly, in every sense of the word, be such a blessing from God. I'm not even joking. I'm going to continue to pray about something like that, but I can't tell you how much of a blessing that would be in my eyes to be able to corroborate and collaborate with National Hurricane Center just before we potentially go into an active hurricane season like next year. That would be amazing. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to keep that in my heart and whatnot. Ian, Katrina, Maria, and Otis events are tragedy. Yes, big time. Big time. Those are the ones we want to watch out for. Those are the ones we need to make sure we're really, really hyping and communicating as best as we can to people. That's where I believe all the hype is allowed. If you have a major hurricane headed towards a very, very populated area, that deserves hype. And that's when you got to remember, when I say hype, I don't mean coming up with all sorts of outlandish terminologies and whatnot. When I say hype, I mean like we need to push. We need to hype it to get it across to as many people as possible. That's how I look at hype. There's different, again, I'm going to say like an ogre, there's different layers to hype. There's superficial hype where, nothing's happening, but you can turn nothing into the end of the world. But then there's also hype to where we have a Cat 5 coming towards you. This needs to be taken serious. That's the difference. So there are times where you hype, and then there are times where you can just leave it alone. And right now, with everything we have happening out there across the weather community in the Caribbean and the Gulf, the Southeast, there's no reason to hype. There's definitely no reason to hype. There's definitely a reason to bring awareness, but there's no reason to hype it up. But all right, folks, Thanksgiving next week. This trip, I've been so fixed. Yeah, Zarko, life has been punching me upside the head. I got my Mike Tyson shirt on and everything. Like, I've been getting Mike Tyson for the last couple days, for the last couple weeks, for that matter. The holiday is coming up. It's gonna be here faster than flipping Halloween was, and Halloween came and went. I feel like. You're one of the best. Well, thank you very much, Zen. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the kind sentiments. It's folks like you guys who keep me pushing, who make these videos and these live streams fun. But yeah, guys, now that we're on the subject of Thanksgiving, I do really hope that you all have a wonderful holiday. I know we're not there yet, but this leads me into advertising that I will be coming out with another holiday short or two. I did one for Veterans Day. I did a bunch for Halloween, and I won't forget about you guys on Thanksgiving. And I'll tell you right now, since Thanksgiving is entirely rooted in gratefulness and giving thanks, you best believe it's going to be a bit more of an emotional Thanksgiving, especially as we get closer to 6,000 subscribers. I mean, that gives me chills. To some, that's, baby toy. That's baby levels of subscribers. That's nothing. But to me, guys, that I can't even tell you how humbly grateful I am for that. That's huge. Because when you think about, I look at it as, not just a statistic or a number. I look at that as those are the people who entrust me with their weather content. Those are the people who, when they hear weather, they think of Weather Center Nazario. And to be getting close to 6,000 people, that's an audience of 6,000 people out there who respect me and admire my work enough, or I should say trust my work enough to come on here, take time out of their day, and to watch what it is that I have to say into my little microphone here. Matthew F-150, have a good night. We'll talk to you very soon, buddy. I mean, I know we'll be talking, that's for sure. We do pretty much often on Instagram, so thanks for joining in. But anyways, yeah, guys, I mean, long story short, when I do my next Thanksgiving short or two, it's definitely going to be a little bit more emotional and more at the heartstrings, truthfully, because we wouldn't be here without you guys. We'd be doing it, but who would I be talking to outside of maybe myself and one other person? So it is a true blessing to have all you guys in my corner. Not to keep being, boxing punny, but, it's nice to have everyone in my corner like that. I'm thankful for people like you who care to prepare us for what is coming. Absolutely. And, it goes both ways, too. I like to prepare us for the good stuff, too. And like Maddie was saying earlier, if we get that nor'easter in, we're going to have some enhanced weather activity with it, but it might just be a beautiful Thanksgiving for everybody. Lord willing, we can cool off again down here in Florida specifically for Thanksgiving, and it can feel like Thanksgiving. There's nothing more wholesome. There's nothing that hits me in the heartstrings more than going out for Halloween or celebrating with the family on Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, and feeling the cold air, bundling up, taking your wintertime pictures and all your winter fashion, It's amazing. I love it. I would take winter and fall fashion over summer fashion any day of the week because you get to accessorize and do all that. But all right, we are 7 minutes over the stream. We are going to cut it, guys. Thank you very much for taking some time, as I mentioned, out of your evening, your Monday night, to talk with me, to shoot the breeze and talk tropics, talk weather across the board. We will continue to do so, and we will also roll through the Halloween. You can tell what's on my mind. We will roll through the holiday season together, still doing these live streams and doing our full-fledged Weather Center segments. There will definitely be a bit more of a variety of content coming soon to include maybe a parody video or two just for, lighten the mood a little bit, especially if there isn't any bad weather to talk about out there. So we'll see. I'm definitely going to innovate the channel. Once we get out of hurricane season and we can put the hype to bed, then we'll start to innovate the channel a little bit, have some fun in the right way. But if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop them in the comments section below or leave them on my Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram, WXCenter_Nazario. I always reach back to everybody. I try my best, to communicate and to connect with everyone as best I can. I pump out a lot more static updates on there than I do on YouTube. YouTube is just one video a day, one live stream every other day. On my Instagram, if you want content or a play-by-play, that's where you need to be because I will be posting up all sorts of different things on there on a regular basis, every day for that matter, unless it's Sunday. Sometimes I like to just turn my brain off. If you're still in the chat, Janice, like I had mentioned, I have 1,000 things going on through my head on a regular day, times like 2,000 because of weather and all that, and content creation. Mike, I do appreciate you tuning in, homie. Good to see you in there again. We'll talk to everybody again soon. We'll see you tomorrow for our next full-fledged Weather Center segment at 6 p.m., and we'll see you again on Wednesday for our next 8 p.m. Tropics Talk. And I really look forward to it, guys. Until next time, this is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.